World War I, Great War. World War I was a global war originating in Europe that lasted from 28 July 1914 to 11th November 1918. Known as the Great War or the War to End All Wars. It led to the mobilization of more than 70 million military personnel, including 60 million Europeans, making it one of the largest wars in history. It is also one of the deadliest conflicts in history, with an estimated 13 million civilian deaths as a direct result of the war. On 28 June 1914, Gavrilo Princip, a Bosnian Serb, Yugoslav nationalist, assassinated the Austro-Hungarian heir Archduke Franz Ferdinand in Sarajevo, leading to the July crisis. In response, Austria-Hungary issued an ultimatum to Serbia on 23 July. Serbia's reply failed to satisfy the Austrians, and the two moved to a war footing. A network of interlocking alliances enlarged the crisis from a bilateral issue in the Balkans to one involving most of Europe. The Balkans are usually characterized as comprising Albania, Bosnia, and Herzegovina. Bulgaria, Croatia, Kosovo, Montenegro, North Macedonia, Romania, Serbia, and Slovenia, with all or part of each of those countries located within the peninsula. The region takes its name from the Balkan Mountains that stretch throughout the whole of Bulgaria from the Serbian-Bulgarian border to the Black Sea. By July 1914, the great powers of Europe were divided into two coalitions: the Triple Entente, consisting of France, Russia, and Britain, and the Triple Alliance of Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. The Triple Alliance was only defensive in nature, allowing Italy to stay out of the war until April 1915, when it joined the Allied powers after its relations with Austria-Hungary deteriorated. Russia felt it necessary to back Serbia and approved partial mobilization after Austria-Hungary shelled the Serbian capital of Belgrade on 28 July. Full Russian mobilization was announced on the evening of 13th July. The following day, Austria-Hungary and Germany did the same, while Germany demanded Russia demobilize within 12 hours. When Russia failed to comply, Germany declared war on Russia on 1st August in support of Austria-Hungary. The later following suit on 6th August, France ordered full mobilization in support of Russia on 2nd August. Germany's strategy for a war on two fronts against France and Russia was to rapidly concentrate the bulk of its army in the west to defeat France within 6 weeks, then shift forces to the east before Russia could fully mobilize. This was later known as the Schlieffen Plan. The Schlieffen Plan was a name given after the First World War to German war plans, due to the influence of Field Marshal Alfred von Schlieffen and his thinking on an invasion of France and Belgium, which began on 4th August 1914. Schlieffen was the chief of the General Staff of the German Army from 1891 to 1906. On 2nd August, Germany demanded free passage through Belgium, an essential element in achieving a quick victory over France. When this was refused by Belgium, German forces invaded Belgium on 3rd August and declared war on France in the same day. the Belgian government invoked the 1839 Treaty of London and, in compliance with its obligations under this treaty, Britain declared war on Germany on 4th August. On 12th August, Britain and France also declared war on Austria-Hungary. On 23rd August, Japan sided with Britain, seizing German positions in China and the Pacific. In November 1914, the Ottoman Empire entered the war on the side of Austria-Hungary and Germany, opening fronts in Caucasus, Mesopotamia, and the Sinai Peninsula. The war was fought in each power's colonial empire also, spreading the conflict to Africa and across the globe. The Entente and its allies eventually became known as the Allied Powers, while the grouping of Austria-Hungary, Germany, and their allies became known as the Central Powers. The German advance into France was halted at the Battle of Marne, and by the end of 1914, the Western Front settled into a war of attrition, marked by a long series of trench lines that changed little until 1917. In 1915, Italy joined the Allied Powers and opened a front in the Alps. Bulgaria joined the Central Powers in 1915, and Greece joined the Allies in 1917, expanding the war in the Balkans. The United States initially remained neutral, though even while neutral, it became an important supplier of war material to the Allies. Eventually, after the sinking of American merchant ships by German submarines, the declaration by Germany that its navy would resume unrestricted attacks on neutral shipping, and the revelation that Germany was trying to incite Mexico to initiate war against the United States. The US declared war on Germany on 6 April 1917. Trained American forces did not begin arriving at the front in a large number until mid-1918, but the American Expeditionary Force ultimately reached some 2 million troops. Though Serbia was defeated in 1915 and Romania joined the Allied Powers in 1916, only to be defeated in 1917. None of the great powers were knocked out of the war until 1918. The 1917 February Revolution in Russia replaced the Tsarist autocracy with a provisional government. But continuing discontent with the cost of the war led to the October Revolution, the creation of the Soviet Socialist Republic, and the signing of the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk by the new government in March 1980, ending Russia's involvement in the war. Germany now controlled much of Eastern Europe and transferred large numbers of combat troops to the Western Front. Using new tactics, the German March 1918 offensive was initially successful. The Allies fell back and held. The last of the German reserves were exhausted as 10,000 fresh American troops arrived every day. The Allies drove the Germans back in their 100 Days Offensive, a continual series of attacks to which the Germans had no reply. One by one, the Central Powers quit. First Bulgaria, then the Ottoman Empire, and the Austro-Hungarian Empire, with its allies defeated. Revolution at home, and the military no longer willing to fight. Kaiser William abdicated on 9th November, and Germany signed an armistice on 11th November 1918, ending the fighting. World War I was a significant turning point in the political, cultural, economic, and social climate of the world. The war and its immediate aftermath sparked numerous revolutions and uprisings. the Big Four, that are Britain, France, the United States, and Italy, imposed their terms on defeated powers in a series of treaties agreed at the 1919 Paris Peace Conference. The most well-known being German peace treaty is the Treaty of Versailles. Ultimately, as a result of the war, the Austro-Hungarian, German, Ottoman, and Russian empires ceased to exist, and numerous new states were created from their remains. However, despite the conclusive Allied victory and the creation of the League of Nations during the peace conference intended to prevent future wars, but a Second World War followed just over 20 years later.